Good evening to everybody that is tuning in tonight. Welcome back to another episode of the Uncharted Territory Podcast. Today, I actually have on with me a very special guest. Hopefully, you've heard of him before. If you've heard of Randy Fine, then you've definitely heard of Aaron Baker. Aaron is running for Florida's 6th Congressional District against the vile and AIPAC-backed Randy Fine. Aaron has come on the show to talk about his campaign against Randy, and of course, a lot of other things pertaining to America First and his agenda for Florida when he's elected, hopefully. Aaron, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Aaron, let's jump right in. You've been in a very contested race with Randy Fine for some time now. And I want you just to kind of explain to viewers, how did you get to this position today where now you're running up against Randy Fine for Florida's 6th
During the special election back in January, I was approached by a group of Republicans and they told me all the same thing. Aaron, this person is not a good person. So I started doing a little bit of background research where he called a school board member a whore. His words, not mine, where he withheld funding from the Brevard Zoo because he couldn't have a fundraiser there, where he was held in contempt of court for flipping off a judge during a Zoom call. And the more you dig, the more you find out. And it was just absolutely repulsive. And I said, okay, well, I'm in, I'll do it. So special elections are a little difficult in Florida because they're very quick. So this was announced right before Christmas with the primary being the end of January. So I basically had a month to run a campaign and win as many places as I could. But at that time, I only had about $30,000 to spend. So I said, well, obviously, Randy Fine's not going to change once he gets to Washington, which we've all seen he hasn't. So the day after he was elected, I filed my paperwork to run against him again because I do believe that we need someone, especially here, because the poverty rate here is 3.5% higher than the national average. So we need someone in this district, well, first of all, that lives here, and Randy Fine does not live in the district. You're not required to under the Constitution, but obviously, I believe you should. And I also work here. My office is right down the street, about 12 minutes away. So, I said I can do better. I can listen to the people, which I'm out there literally every single day at different events, and I will do better. I will do better than this abysmal excuse of a representative, if you even want to call him a representative. I mean, so far, the only thing that he's done for the district is gotten a few Biden era grants completed, and that's it. I mean, there's no legislative agenda. There's no, I mean, the legislation that he proposes is just stupid. I mean, he proposed canceling Wall Street Journal subscriptions for all members of Congress because he didn't like the news story that they wrote that day. Well, I mean, how does that help us?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're the ones that have to go to the grocery store. We're the ones that, my dog's food is $30 for a 5.5 pound bag. I'm like, none of this is changing. Washington keeps telling us that everything is changing, and it's not. It's not. I mean, gas is still $3 a gallon. Yeah, it might hit $1.99 someplace obscure, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, I filled up today. It was $2.92 a gallon. So we're at a complete disconnect between our members of Congress overall and the people that actually have to live with the policies that they put forward every day.
Absolutely. Let's actually talk about Randy Fine here for a minute. Randy is one of the most prolific pro-Israel supporters right now in Congress. He's backed by
Yeah.
AIPAC, and that certainly seems to kind of be his calling card, and where he seems to be getting a lot of his financial support from is from the pro-Israel lobby. Given that you're going up against Randy and that you're in effect going up against AIPAC, have you been intimidated by any AIPAC officials? Have you been told by any AIPAC officials that, we're going to fund your opposition, we're going to run you out of town? I asked that, Aaron, because that is something that I hear a lot from aspiring lawmakers, people who are on the campaign trails, that the minute that they have some type of even the slightest critique of Israel, or that they refuse to take money from AIPAC, AIPAC doubles down and puts more money in their opponent's prospective campaign. I just want to know your kind of experience with
Yeah.
that.
I mean, as far as intimidation goes, during the special election, when I filed my paperwork, Randy Fine called me and told me how un-American I was, how anti-Trump I was, how all of this rhetoric that am I intimidated by Randy Fine? No, I had other members of Congress call me and tell me that I shouldn't be running. Elected members of Congress, current sitting members of Congress, call me and tell
Wow.
me that I shouldn't be running. It might intimidate somebody, but it sure as hell doesn't intimidate me. I mean, I don't care. At the end of the day, I care about the roughly 900,000 people that live and work in this congressional district. And I don't care if your background is Muslim. I don't care if your background is Jewish, if your background is Christian, if you're atheist. Every single person in this congressional district deserves equal representation. That's it.
Fantastic answer. I agree with that. And I really wish a lot of aspiring lawmakers had that same perspective because unfortunately, many don't. Um, you have been kind of part of the new, I think, wave of Republicans and conservatives coming across the United States, where typically there was once this kind of expected component by Republicans is that you had to reflexively support Israel and take money from AIPAC, or else you weren't really deemed a Republican. But you've gone against the status quo. You've criticized Israel for what it's been doing to Palestinians in Gaza. You've
Mhm.
criticized settlement expansion in the West Bank. Can you talk about what it's been like for you as a Republican actually not being reflexively pro-Israel and seeing the just kind of backlash you've gotten from that? What's that been like?
Well, I mean, if I go to an event and this is an older congressional district, the average age here is 50.
Mhm,
If I go to an event and, a 75-year-old lady walks up to me and says, I want to make sure that you're still going to support Israel. And my response is, ma'am, I don't want to support any foreign government, any foreign country until we have zero homeless veterans in this congressional district. And when you turn the argument like that, it's a almost impossible argument to counter. I mean, what are you going to say that you support homeless veterans?
mhm,
There's no other side of the coin there, but you almost do have to make the stand. You have to use examples that are so blatantly obvious. I mean, as a country, we are $38 trillion in debt. That is a huge, massive number. Right now, that's about just the service on our debt is about 18% of our national budget.
mhm,
Once that gets to 25%, there's no turning back. There's no, okay, well, we can balance the budget in 7 years and we can do this or we can do that. You and I both have to live within our means. I mean, we might need a credit card if we need to go to the doctor or if we, need new tires on the car or something like that. But on a daily basis, I mean, we have to live within our means. The only establishment on the entire planet that doesn't is our federal government.
mhm.
And they just print money to no end. And the money is worth less and less and less. I mean, as you put more money in the system, that dilutes the value of the existing money, causing inflation. So it's not a one party. I was at an event today in Mount Dora, and a guy said, well, the Democrats caused all this inflation. Yes, the Democrats caused all this inflation, but so did the Republicans. We're not doing any better.
Mhm.
We're continuing down the same path, and it seems like there's no end in sight unless you have somebody that actually still has common sense that wants to take on this behemoth that is Washington and the behemoth that is Randy Fine and try to make a difference.
Yeah, literally and figuratively speaking, a behemoth. So,
Your word, not mine.
yeah, okay. You could quote me on that if anybody's watching. Again, I think that was a great answer because the sentiment coming, I think, out of younger Republicans today is that they want to actually have a true America first government, meaning, as what you
Correct.
said, there are no loyalties to foreign governments. There's no loyalty to the military industrial complex. We can't blindly support governments who are committing war crimes in our name. Meanwhile, mortgages are going up, the interest rates on it are going up, wages are going down, and can't keep up with the cost of living that just keeps exponentially increasing. Juxtaposed to Randy Fine, what would be your solution for really combating some of the issues that Florida is facing in terms of cost of living and trying to create a more equitable and affordable life for Florida citizens?
Let me tell you what this specific congressional district needs. We need infrastructure and we need to address flooding concerns.
Mhm.
Flooding concerns and infrastructure are the biggest needs from the federal government. As far as inflation and the cost of living, we need to spend less money. The less money that we spend, the less money that the Federal Reserve prints out of thin air, and the more valuable our dollars are. We need an energy policy, specifically here in Florida. Our electric bills are going to go up by about 40% over the next 4 years. That's something that we have time to head off, but we have to turn back to the resources that we have in the short term and use natural gas and still coal fired power plants to boost that power production. Because what's happening is Florida bought into the Green New Deal, if you will,
Mhm.
and so we have all of these solar farms. So all of these solar farms, it's the most expensive way to produce energy possible. And we really have to get away from it, or we're going to turn into Europe where the power bills are so unaffordable, people can't leave the light on for more than 6 minutes. We have to just get back to a point of common sense. We don't want oil drilling off the coast of Florida. I've heard some proposals lately that people are talking about more oil drilling off the coast. We don't want that in Florida. Florida Republicans are much different than most. We're very, very, very pro environment. We want the absolute cleanest air. We want the cleanest water that we can possibly have, and we want to protect the wildlife. Me specifically in Florida, this congressional district has the Ocala National Forest. So it's it's a national forest. We have a lot of black bears. I was the only Republican in the entire state of Florida that spoke up and said, I don't want to do the black bear hunt. Well, that actually started yesterday. But, months ago when they were having hearings about it, I spoke up and I said, I don't believe that this is something that Floridians want. And so we cherish our wildlife. We cherish the environment. Florida Republicans are a little different because we enjoy the outdoors a little bit more because we get to spend a little more time outdoors.
Yeah, unlike here in Michigan where it's, warm maybe 4 months out of the year, if we're lucky. You really do seem to embody, I think, very good ideals, and I always hate to come back to your candidate, but I would be excuse me, your opponent, and I would be remiss not to mention it because I really do want people to see that there is a really big principled and moral difference between you 2. I wanna
I
draw
know.
attention I wanna draw attention to some of, Randy Fine's comments. Of course, as we know, Gaza has dominated the headlines for the past 2 years. Randy has said, "Bombs away, starve away," whenever talking about Palestinian children in Gaza or just Palestinians in Gaza in general, and this comes amidst a moment in which just about every reputable human rights organization has accused Israel of deliberately starving people in Gaza. He doesn't seem to care about that. People will upload pictures and videos of, just absolutely debilitated pictures of Palestinians who are either hurt or dead, and he laughs at it. But he's able to still hold power in Congress and still have his seat. He's never been censored once. Why do you think somebody that has such a disdain for Palestinians, a disdain for Muslims, able to say these things, able to keep power and not get any blowback from other lawmakers in the Republican Party? I mean, why do you think that is? Just from your opinion.
Well, he has gotten blowback from certain members of Congress. I know Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Mhm.
wrote a story specifically about Randy Fine about how horrible he was. I know there are members of Congress that have spoken up, but very few, very few. And I think it's because most of the members of Congress take money from AIPAC. To your point, Randy Fine's rhetoric was so horrible that AIPAC deleted him from their their website.
You know how bad you gotta be for that to happen?
You know how bad you have to be to get on AIPAC's bad side? And then he took a trip to Israel for, I don't know, 10 days or something. And after that, the rhetoric toned down a little bit, but you can't change the stripes on a zebra.
Mhm.
As soon as he got back and as soon as he, decided that Muslims were going to take over the world and that he hates all of them, then the rhetoric starts right back up again. He just can't help himself. I think he has a loose screw or two up here. He needs
Probably.
a, even when he was ordered to court ordered anger management, he said, well, that's probably not the worst thing to go to anger management. So, I mean, obviously there's some underlying issues there that need to be addressed.
Most certainly. You've described yourself as a, proud Republican and Christian
Mhm.
conservative, but I wanna kinda bring these comments back to how you feel. There's been increasing solidarity and knowledge of the presence of Christianity within Palestine, and I wanna know, whenever you hear comments like Randy Fines, I mean, based off your Christian values, how does that make you feel to think that there's a man out there that can just hold so much contempt and hatred for somebody just because they live in a certain place in the world and look a certain way?
So let me answer that question with this way. The other evening, I did a town hall at the University of Florida. Three congressional candidates and the gentleman that's running for governor here in Florida. And I got home from that event about 12:30 in the morning.
Mhm,
The next morning, I needed to leave here by 6:30 to be at an event by 7:30 um, with another guy that's going to be running for governor. And, that morning I'm laying in bed and, my alarm's going off. It's 5:30 in the morning. I've had like 4 hours of sleep.
mhm.
And I said, do I really want to do this? And I said, yes, I do. I have to do this. I have to work as hard as I possibly can because I truly believe that this is good versus evil. And the only way to not let evil prevail is you have to work 10 times harder. And I do it every single day. Do I want to take time to go to 6 events over last weekend? I mean, literally, Friday, I was at the event with our Lieutenant Governor, Jay Collins, in the morning from about 7:30 until 10 o'clock. I still work full time. I'm a general contractor, so I still have stuff to do. I came back, I did some stuff at the office, and then 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I leave here. I go set up a tent in Flagler in Veterans Park at Flagler Beach and then later that evening, go to a Christmas party in St. Augustine. I
Mhm.
have to get out there. I have to shake the hands. I have to meet the people because if I don't, evil will prevail. So
Absolutely.
it makes me work harder.
I 110% agree with you. I've seen your tweets about AIPAC, right? And to me,
Hmm.
I personally disagree with AIPAC, and I think what they're doing to America is evil because they're
Hmm.
essentially pumping money into what's supposed to be an American democratic process to buy out lawmakers. And I think what people want to know is, if you were to become elected and win, would you make Israel register under FARA? If so, why? Excuse me, AIPAC register under FARA. If so, why?
I know it. I know what you meant by the question. So let me read you USC 601. And
Mhm.
it's just two sections. Okay. And if you agree that this is what APAC is doing, then this is the law. Okay. It said engages within the United States in political activities for or in the interest of such foreign principle. So does APAC engage within the United States in political activities for or in the interest of a foreign country? It's a simple yes or no question. I
They
think
do.
it's obvious.
Yeah.
It's obvious they do. Continuing, or the furtherance or influencing of political or public interest policies or relations of a government of a foreign country or subdivision thereof. So, do they influence the political or public interest, policies, or relations of a foreign government? The answer
Mm,
is yes. So, it's
yeah.
right here in the law. It is literally right here in the law that APAC should be registered under FARA.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kinda crazy that you have such one of the largest lobbying apparatuses in the United States just operating so freely, uncontained, with no guardrails, with no rules, bylines, or regulations. Another question that I have for you that I think a lot of people wanna know is, and I'm sure you have a lot of Muslim constituents in your district. Of course,
A fair number.
yeah. And,
A fair number.
the I think the biggest question is that, and I think a lot of Americans feel this way, not just Muslims, is that when you hopefully defeat Randy Fine and you become, a congressman for Florida's 6th congressional district, will you support armaments to Israel with US taxpayer dollars?
I won't support any foreign dollars going anywhere except the United States of America. At some point, we have to draw a line in the sand and we say, we are not doing this anymore.
Mhm,
Enough is enough. Let me give you an example. The, the other side of the coin is everybody says the Qatari lobby spends 10 times as much as APAC does. Okay, guess what? They're registered as a foreign lobbyist. We know who we're dealing with. We know we're
mhm,
dealing with a foreign country. You know, this is all not rocket science. This is simply common sense. This is what our country was founded on. Our country was founded on we're going to be Americans, we're going to help each other and we're going to love our neighbors. It doesn't matter if, I mean, my neighbor on one side is a first generation immigrant, my neighbor on the other side is African American. Do you think I look at them and say, oh, these people scare me? No, of course they don't. We're all Americans.
mhm.
You were born in Michigan.
Yep, born and raised here my entire life.
Guess what? You're an American and no
Yep.
one can take that away from you.
Well, a lot of people wanna take that away from me when they see my name, but you are absolutely right. No, nobody can. You really just hit on a sensitive point. I mean, racial tension in this country has fluctuated between 2, very tense to kinda moderate, and there's this perception amongst many that Republicans are mean, evil, intolerant, racist, nasty people. Clearly, I don't think that way about you. But let's just say somebody who's watching this has never heard of you before, and they hear Republican and they go, "Oh, my ears, this guy's racist. I don't wanna hear anything a Republican says." What would you say to kind of calm them down and say, "Hey, I'm not like that?"
I'm not. I mean, I think that, for example, if you invited Randy Fine on your program, I mean, can you imagine? I can't imagine what kind of response. I mean, he would want to have you deported, even though you're American. Uh, I, I, I grew up in a Christian family. I grew up going to a Southern Baptist church. We were taught to love our neighbors. It's all the people, yellow, brown, black, and white. It doesn't matter. That's what we were taught growing up.
Mhm,
You know, where I grew up, my best friend in elementary school was African American. Nobody told me, by the way, you're not supposed to have friends that don't look exactly like you do. I
mhm,
mean, most of my family on my dad's side is Puerto Rican.
hmm.
My grandmother came from Puerto Rico. I
Very
mean,
diverse.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how I could be any more diverse of a person than what I am. I've traveled all over the world. The closest I've gotten to Palestine and Israel is Egypt.
Mhm.
Haven't really, never been to Israel. I don't have any plans to go. Egypt wasn't my favorite. The camels smell horrible. They try to sell you fake Rolexes for $10. But and I actually do have friends that I have one friend that has three houses in Egypt. Has family there and goes back and forth all the time. So it's not that all people from the Middle East are evil, or there is a very small group of extreme Islamic radicals that are a problem. I 100% get that. Does that mean I support Hamas? Like everybody's like, oh, you support Hamas. No, I don't support Hamas. I don't support radical Islamic extremism. Okay. Just the same way I don't support white Christian nationalism. I think Nick Fuentes is batshit crazy. Okay. Tucker, I still like Tucker.
I like Tucker too.
I like Tucker. So I think that there is a lane for like-minded people like myself to be able to say, okay, yeah, we're not the crazy ones, and there are occasions where I think we need more people like me that can actually go to Washington and get something done. Not everything is a partisan issue.
Hmm.
I mean, I believe marriage is between one man and one woman. Now, that could be a partisan issue. Democrats might think it's between everybody. Okay. Well, at the end of the day, let's discuss the 95% of stuff that we do agree on. And let's, you know, table the 5% of stuff that we don't agree on. And let's see what we can get done for the people that we're elected to represent.
Absolutely. Um, you brought up a lot of domestic issues. You touched on Israel. I think that's all great. It's one of probably the most asked question I got before the show. I know the answer to it, but I want to be able to give you the ability to say how you feel. What would be your opinion on what's happening in Gaza?
I mean, I've said publicly before that that is a genocide. I've had people that have called me every name under the sun for saying that.
Mhm.
But when you see dead women and dead children, that's not good. I don't support politicians that sign bombs. I don't support the US providing the weapons to kill people. I've spoken to a couple of doctors that rotate and they're on the ground in Gaza. And some of the stories that they tell, I don't know how they sleep at night because, I mean, some of the things that you see, like, for example, I believe there was a group of 12 Palestinians that were coming over they came to the United States for like amputee
Yeah.
prosthesis. And, Randy Fine's like, oh, you can't allow these people in the country. These are crazy people. I mean, we're talking about people that the United States has funded their arm missing. Do I think that they deserve to be in this country on a short term medical visa? Absolutely. Not every person on this planet is evil like Randy Fine.
Yeah, wow. I that was very blunt and I really I don't really know how to respond to that. On that topic, I think if I remember correctly, there was an organization called Heal Palestine. It was founded by Stephen
Hmm.
Sosebee and not all Republicans, but a lot of right-wing figures like Randy Fine and like Laura Loomer basically said that the government, the Trump administration, was bought by Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood, all because a handful of Palestinian children from Gaza who were amputees came to America to receive medical treatment. And in response to that, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, I believe, terminated the program because of the backlash he was getting from AIPAC supported politicians and from, just pro Israel figures. Now, hypothetically speaking, um, let's say you win your election against Randy Fine, and let's say a piece of legislation comes across your desk saying that there's about 100 Palestinians from Gaza, whatever the number. I'm just spitballing. Need to come here for emergency medical treatment on a short-term visa. Is this a bill you're signing? Is that something you would endorse, just given what you said previously?
So if it's a visa issue, that's never going to be a piece of legislation, but that would be under the Secretary of State. I would pick up the phone and call the Secretary of State and say, you need to support this, or walk over to his office and say, hey, you need to support this. Let me give you one example.
Hmm.
We had a kid that's from Florida,
Hmm.
okay, um, that was throwing rocks at an IDF vehicle.
That hasn't been proven yet, I just wanna say. They just claimed that
Correct.
allegedly. Yeah. Mhm.
Accused of throwing rocks at an IDF vehicle. I don't care. There were two Republicans in this entire state of Florida that stood up and said, "Get this kid back home." And I didn't care about. I mean, if the allegations were true, okay, fine. The issue that I had was that a foreign country was holding an American citizen, and more specifically, a Floridian, in custody, and he had not been charged with a crime yet. There was a crime alleged, but he had not been officially charged with a crime in what I consider a reasonable time frame. Now, I understand they're going through their thing, but the point is, at the end of the day, you have to have the back of every single person in your congressional district. If somebody walks into my office and they're Muslim, do you think that they should get any more or any less attention than a Christian or than a Jewish person?
No.
Absolutely not.
Mhm.
I mean, Lady Justice is blind, okay? Literally blindfolded. It should not make any difference at all if I can't pronounce your name or if your name is Adam.
Yeah.
We just have to get back to a point in this country where we can have an open, honest discussion. And if there is some radical element that needs attention, that needs to be taken out, I think all of us originally supported the war in Iraq. Afterwards we found out, that was kind of you know, that was not good.
Mhm.
Okay. The weapons of mass destruction were not there. We had 200,000 army soldiers going around looking for Ziploc bags of something, and there's nothing there. There's no
Mhm.
there. But at the end of the day, I think the entire point is we need to take care of our home first. You know, when you're in need, you take care of your home, and then you take care of your neighbors, and then you take care of your community. It's just like when a hurricane comes through Florida. Okay. And fortunately, this year we didn't have any hurricanes. But years before, like last year when we had Hurricane Milton, after Hurricane Milton came through, what did I do? The first thing I do is, everybody in my household safe. So I walk across the street and check on my 84-year-old neighbor. I'm like, do you need anything? Do you need water? Do you need anything? That's the way America is supposed to work, not the way Randy finds America works.
Yeah, Randy Fine America works around being behooven to foreign interests, it seems, and demonizing people who really aren't white or Jewish, which is pretty sad because, I would imagine too that your district has a lot of Jewish people in it. And I wanted to talk to you just very briefly about kind of the how that term is unfortunately being used to now label people who criticize Israel as anti-Semitic. So, in any event, if the pro-Israel lobby gets their way, which they have, you and I are anti-Semites because we just think dropping bombs on children is bad and signing them, even though we've said nothing about the Jewish people at all in any derogatory sense. But from your perspective as a lawmaker or possible lawmaker, I mean, what how would you combat something like that? How would you get people to rationally sit and think for a moment that what Israel's doing is not representative of the Jewish people and that constantly associating Israel's actions with the Jewish people across the world is actually a bad thing?
It is. It is a really bad thing. I think lawmakers like Randy Fine actually makes Israel much less appealing to people,
Mhm.
the Israeli government. And there's a difference between the Israeli government, which I should be able to say F you if I want to say F you to Netanyahu and the Israeli government. Most of the cabinet members, if you look at anything that they've said in the past, Charlie Kirk was right. They went into Gaza with one goal in mind, and that was to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
those are his exact words. Ethnically cleanse 2 million people.
And that's actually happening as we speak. You know, I you kind of reminded me of something I wanted to ask you, but it kind of slipped my mind here. So technically, well, not technically speaking, under international humanitarian law and under American law, you cannot violate the Third Geneva Convention, which is about the forcible displacement of people. And there is a lot of laws on the books right now in Congress, the Leahy laws, which prohibits the
Oh, don't bring that up, or
yeah, yeah. So
don't bring that up.
I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to ask you this. I think I know your answer, but basically, the Leahy law says you can't give weapons to any foreign military unit that is alleged or is proven to have partaken in a war crime with American weapons. Then there's Section 620I of the 1961 U.S. Foreign Assistance Act that says if you are a recipient of U.S. military assistance, you cannot block humanitarian aid from coming into an active war zone. Well, Israel has done both of that, and there has been some push by Democratic lawmakers to enforce the Leahy laws on Israel and Section 620I of the Foreign Assistance Act in the event that you hopefully beat Randy Fine. Is this something that you're willing to push for amongst Republicans and possibly work with Democrats across the aisle to do, given that we have seen that there's mounting evidence that Israel is actively using U.S. weapons to facilitate war crimes against Palestinians?
I would be willing to work across the aisle on it. I think the only other Republican that may possibly agree with me on that point would probably have been Marjorie Taylor Greene. And unfortunately, unless she changes her mind, I don't think she's going to be in Congress when I get there.
Well, Marjorie,
I
if you're
would work
listening to
across
this,
the
please
aisle.
come back, Marjorie. Aaron wants you. I want you. Come on back. Come on back.
Right.
We need you. We need you. My last question to you is this, because I know your time is precious. I know we've talked about a bevy of topics, but at the end of the day, I am an American. You're an
You
American.
are.
I care very deeply for this country, and I want to see the quality of life improve for all Americans, regardless of their political persuasion, what they believe in, what they don't believe in, what they identify as. How does an Aaron Baker congressional tenureship look like? How would you fulfill an America First agenda that improves the quality of life of people, improves it in Florida, and makes everybody just feel very welcomed?
Well, first of all, you have about 900,000 residents that you're elected to represent. Um, as of right now, only about 270,000 of those are Republicans. So the bulk of the people, 630,000 roughly, that you have to take care of are not registered Republicans. So you have to take care of every single person in your congressional district. So what that means to me is when a 21-year-old from Daytona Beach that's going to Embry-Riddle is trying to look for an internship after he gets out of college, that you're there, that you pick up the phone and you say, "Hey, Bob from Boeing, I know Adam over here. He really is looking for an internship, and I would be greatly appreciative if if you could help him out." So I think that it's it's not that you just have to take care of one group of people or a special interest group of people. You have to really get out there and you have to do your homework and you really have to know what it is that everyone needs. I mean, everyone needs the price of everything to come down. I mean, the biggest thing right now is just the simple cost of living. I mean, it is killing us on a daily, weekly basis. I mean, especially here, we have a 14.1 or 14.6% poverty rate, depending on what a statistic that you look at. So that means, roughly 1 in 6 out of every person in this congressional district is living below the poverty level. And that doesn't include the working poor. For example, I was in Flagler Beach on Friday and I had two school teachers that have both been teaching for 4 years from Volusia County come up and they're like, "Aaron, we have to do something about affordability." He said, "Based on our salaries together, and this is two of them, we can't afford to buy a home. We can't afford to start a family. So, the reason that they were at this event was because it was a free event right on the beach. It's unacceptable to me that the people have simply been forgotten. I don't like it, and I will do everything in my power to make sure every single person here is taken care of."
What you just said is something that a lot of Americans want to hear, is that there's someone with some power, some authority, or some type of ability to influence their lives in a positive manner, particularly on the Hill, to just improve the cost of living, to make life more affordable for the average American. And actually, this will be my last question, but in seeing and everything that's happened over the past 2 years, the funding of endless wars, our tax dollars being sent to Gaza. Right now, we're bombing Somalia. America and the Trump administration are gearing up right now to try to go to war with Venezuela. We're bombing boats in Latin America and off the coast of Venezuela, and it's like, you know, I think a lot of people are starting to see like the stark intersection between funding the war machine and not funding the American people, and how that just erodes the quality of life here in America and decays the American dream. And my last question to you is, how would you resolve that equation? Are you somebody who's gonna cut like advocate for a reasonable cut in the defense budget to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna take, X amount of percentage of what used to go for Israel or to Jordan or to Egypt or to wherever, and we're gonna just fund the American people? Is this something that you feel needs to be done?
Absolutely, 100%. Let me give you the best example of one thing that we can fix that we haven't fixed. The military industrial complex is a huge problem. So much influence, so much power, huge problem. The pharmaceutical lobby is another huge problem. My dad goes back and forth to Colombia quite often. I have one medication that I take. He can get it over the counter in Colombia, no prescription. You just walk in and get it. And a prescription costs about $6, just over the counter. If I get the exact same medicine here, exact same medicine, exact same active ingredients here, my copay on my insurance is $30. So we have to get our head out of our ass, and we have to tell these lobbyists that enough is enough, and we have to take our country back, from the military industrial complex to the pharmaceutical lobbies to every special interest on the planet. I mean, you look at where Randy Fein's money comes from. It's from every special interest possible. You know, how does he afford to go out and have a lunch on multiple occasions, $791, $931 at the Capitol Hill Club, because special interest groups are paying for it. And, he bills it to his campaign. I mean, the man, when he was in the state house, went to Las Vegas and billed over $14,000 as entertainment expenses. I mean, this is not how you and I live. You and I are scratching our heads. How are we going to make it to the next payday, and praying that, my dog doesn't get sick, that, I don't have a flat tire, that I don't need anything extra, because it's just the affordability issue is number one priority. And we have to get the military industrial complex, the pharmaceutical lobby, the special interest, everything out of our government. It's almost like we need to throw out probably 430 of the 435 congressmen and completely start over.
That is a sentiment that is widely shared by many Americans, including ourselves. It's very hard to find an honest politician who isn't being supported by AIPAC, the pharmaceutical companies, whatever the case may be, and it's actively hurting us. I mean, the American dream is kind of fleeting. I mean, the type of life that your parents or my parents could have with X amount of money is no longer, attainable in 2025, and it certainly won't change in 2026, and won't really change until the foreseeable future unless there's some type of, dramatic change within the American political system, and how we go about how we go about things. Aaron, this marks the end of the interview, and I just want to say I am so grateful that you came on, and I'm very glad that a lot of people will get to hear this and really see what you're about. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Baker, the candidate for Florida's 6th congressional district. Aaron, thank you for coming on.
And if you want to go to my website, it's really easy, flaaron.com.
Absolutely. I will be tagging that online as soon as this is done and this episode's up. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you as well.